So here we have a BMW 6 Series GT, model year 2019. Now apologies for the wind and the rain, we're doing this on a end of March 2023. So it's horrible weather at the moment. Right now the air suspension is refusing to go down, so I don't know if you're aware, but these cars are on an air ride on the back. So you've got two bags, one on the left, one on the right, and the idea is they're meant to go up and down to adjust for the differences in the level of the car. Under here, just behind here, is a compressor. The compressor is designed to fill the rear bags up, and as the car is instructing the compressor to fill the rear suspension up, the suspension bags, the airbags, will cause the vehicle to go up, and then as we want them to go down, it will release air. There's a discharge valve, and air will go down. Now the problem we have is the air is not coming out at all. Mind these incredibly curved rims. Yep, that's me, I can't drive. But at the moment the air suspension, if you can see, is fully extended, and it's refusing to go down. This here, that's the air pipe which goes to the rear suspension, and that's the rear left, and I believe this is the rear right. So what we'll do is we'll get the car fully jacked up and braced. Now there's a reason I've put it on blocks, and the reason is once we let the air out, it's going to drop. Now hopefully it's going to drop onto the jack stands. I'm going to put a jack underneath it, and the idea is it will drop as we release the suspension. So I've got it left on there because what will happen is as we take the axle stands away, once we finish our job, the vehicle is going to be dropped all the way down. Unfortunately, if you've got your jack underneath it, you're still going to, the car's going to sag all the way down, and then it's going to correct itself and go back up. There's a risk it might damage the jack. The vehicle may not come back up. We might have a problem there. So at least if we've got some blocks in, we can at least pull the jack away, because once it's dropped, you're only left with a couple of inches from underneath the vehicle. So just under there, you're only left with a very small amount. What we're going to do now is look into ISTA and see if there's any faults on the car. So once you've got your vehicle up in the air, you might want to take the rear wheel off. I am going to leave it on for now because I've done this a few times now. But we need to take off a couple of brackets, a couple of bolts. Oh, there's one. A couple of bolts to take off this rear arch liner. So there's one which is down here. We need to take this one off. This one in the middle, and there's one there which can come off or it can stay on. Doesn't really matter too much. Just in there. I've taken them off. Yeah, and we'll see how we go. So once we've got these bolts off, we can peel back the boot liner, sorry, the wheel arch liner. I'm just going to get it a little bit out of the way, and we can see the compressor right here. Pop the torch on against a better light. So the next step is to take off this heat shield for the exhaust. Now you can see we've got a few bolts, so you've got one here, one here, one here, and we've got one just lurking there, and I believe we've got one there. Now, really important, try and remember the orientation of this because it's a bit of a pig to get in and out if you forget what it is. So once that's off, we then have this plastic moulding which houses the compressor, and that needs to come off. So once again, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're pretty much done. So we've managed to get the under tray off. It's sat right there. There's the rear exhaust pipe, so if you can find your orientation from there. Yep, the heat shield is off. we just need to work on this box. Now there is very handily a little pin here which can always get you back into the orientation you need when it comes to putting it back on. You can see just peeking there is the mount for the compressor. That's where the compressor mounts to the frame of the vehicle, but we'll access that in just a moment. Once you've peeled this off, again there's another point where you can use as a reference for putting everything back together. Once you've taken the heat shield off, you expose this, which is also holding it to the frame, and we'll get the whole lot off and come back in just a second. And here is the compressor itself. You can see it's being held into the frame here. There's a bolt just there, and just here, which is raised a little bit off the frame of the vehicle. A few things to note: you've got this is your exit air, I believe. This is your input air, which starts just behind the boot, the wheel liner. Here you've got your earth lead. Here is your left and right air, so each one of those goes to a suspension strut. In the first part of the video you saw it's quite dark. It's actually the colour changes just here, so it looked black in the video, it's actually blue. And then we've got our solenoid, so sometimes this goes. If you find that your suspension is too high on the left or the right, there's the possibility that either of these has failed, or that the unit itself has failed. Now you can pick these up for about 20, 30, 40 quid on eBay, Amazon. They just bolt back in. There's a few videos on YouTube about how to disassemble and reassemble with new parts, so I can link those in at the bottom of the video. But for now, let's have a look at where we're going taking this off. I should mention the housing of the under tray, which contains the compressor, which is here, is a bit of a difficult one to deal with, because it's actually two parts. This is a separate part, so when this came apart first time around I got a little bit worried, but as you can see it's not quite straight, so the idea is it slots in here like that. When you screw in from underneath, you're actually screwing, where is it? This one here. I'm screwing there into here, just holding that there, and the same again on this side, holding that there. So the next step is to release the air that's currently in the suspension springs. Now I've got to be very careful here, because whilst I am supported here, I've got some jack stands ready, the car may have a tendency to drop, and obviously if this isn't stable enough, it's going to fall on me. So I'm going to keep well away from the vehicle, and just at arm's length with a 10mm spanner, I'm just going to release a little bit of air from here. Now, interestingly, it does say RL, that's rear left, so we'll let those drop a little bit. Particular thanks go to Ovidio, whose video is fantastic. Now these are the two valves. This is the one from BMW itself, which comes on the G32, and it's a WABCO 173. Now I've tried to look for these and I can't find an identical one. However, from what I understand, this part failed. What I would say, and this is the reason why I've gone into the car multiple times, is this is the new replacement one. I got it for £20 on Amazon, and the idea is it goes up and down. There's a washer on that. There's no washer on this. This washer that should have been on there was stuck in that hole here, and that's where the air discharges from to go from, I believe, the from the dryer back into the compressor, or vice versa, to be discharged. Now that is where the issue came from, I believe. That's my diagnosis. The washer that used to be on here has fell off and has gone in there. Now I've tested this discharge valve with a 12-volt battery. If you're from the UK, I just bought this from Toolstation. It was, I think, £8 or so, which again, when you compare that to the total cost of going to BMW and having them fix it for you, it's nothing, and you've got a nice little 12-volt battery to keep by if you ever need it. But for the moment, I believe this should work. I've tested it with here, and this little discharge valve opens up, and I believe that's by raising up a little bit that releases the air. So the valve has been replaced, and it's obviously we've got a few different connectors which need to go back into the vehicle. So we've got one here which is back to the valve, and the solenoid has one as well. This is the power to the actual compressor itself. So I'm just going to check all of these connections, just clean them down with a bit of WD-40, make sure everything's looking happy. When I checked the vehicle in ISTA, and we're going to go back into ISTA in a moment, it didn't show any voltage errors or anything like that, so it's unlikely. But whilst it's off the car, I'm just going to give the whole unit a tidy up and just a bit of WD-40 to waterproof a few parts. Okay, so the exhaust heat shield is back on. The, what should we call it, the plastic housing for the compressor's back on. It's a bit of a pain because there's a few bolts like this one up here which is very difficult to get to, but it's all very doable. Just remember the order that you've done it in. It shouldn't take too long. Now the reason why we put the car up on these blocks, and I know you're not meant to jack the car from here, you're meant to do it from the diff, but when we lower the car, you're going to see the whole thing sag down because we've decompressed the springs. I guess you could potentially turn the engine on and hope that the air refills itself, but I believe that it does take a minute or two. So what we'll do, we'll just let the car down very gently, see what happens. Now, if you see there, those blocks are about 3 or 4 inches, gentleman's inches, and you kind of see that little gap there. If I hadn't had put those there, the jack at the moment would currently be compressed underneath the car, so you wouldn't be able to move it. You wouldn't be able to move the vehicle without damaging the jack or the car itself. Now you should be able to see that the vehicle has now dropped on its springs, so that's with no air whatsoever in it. When I first started this process, that's what the vehicle looked like, because I had an issue with the discharge valve being completely open, shut. Well, I think dirt gets in it and it stays fully open, whereas now we're in a, hopefully it's fixed, but we're still a bit stuck. So we're now going to jump into BMW ISTA, which is the programming diagnostic tool. I would strongly recommend that if you are going to read car data from ISTA, that you hooked up to a voltage supply just to keep the battery topped up. ISTA tends to run your battery down quite quickly, so we just need a ground neutral, and you've got your positive terminal there. I'm currently showing at 12.4 volts, but we'll keep the battery charged just to keep it going.